Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Marsha. How are you?
I'm fine. Happy belated birthday.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was, I don't know, it's weird to be 60, I have to say.
I'm shocked. I mean, because I've known you, I never thought that I've known you so long that if you're 60, I'm older than you. So I'm shocked. And I'm shocked that we're this age now.
Yes. Yeah. Aunt Betty was like,
I still think of us.
Aunt Betty was like, I can't believe you're 60. I remember going to see you when you were born.
I know. Okay. Well, I have not known you that long, but I've known you long enough that I still think of us as being sort of in our 20s.
I know. Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
I think, the way I think of it is when we actually get together in person, because there's so much time in between that we weren't together. Time sort of telescopes. So if you only count the amount of time that we've spent in the same, physical space since we met, we probably are still in our 20s.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, anyway, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And now we'll not talk about turning 60 for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, it doesn't, I'm not bothered. I'm just kind of, well, like the video of the dogs, how they were perplexed that I was going to work. Like, what?
You're just kind of surprised.
I'm like, yeah, how did that happen? I'm kind of confused. Anyway, yeah. Feeling good still. Nothing happened, The day I turned 60, my body didn't fall apart or anything. So I'm taking that as a good sign. Went to a winery with some friends. That was fun. We went to Pisano Winery down the valley, down the Salinas Valley a ways. And it was a nice day. We've been having great, really, really nice weather. If you want to enjoy the weather in Monterey County, October, end of September, October, February. Don't come in the summer. You'll just be able to hear me whining. Even if you're, we don't ever meet in person, you'll hear it because I'll be whining loudly all summer long. Loud enough for everyone to hear. Yeah.
Well, I will be down there before too long.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So, we've talked about this before, I'm pretty sure, but we are going to Stitches West, which I believe, Kelly, isn't it the 3rd through the 6th?
Yes.
Of March. And so we're going to that. And I had a lot of discussion about how I'm going to get down there, but I decided I'm going to take the train. So I booked my ticket. So it's overnight on the train, which I'm really looking forward to. And I have a compartment, so I'll be isolating I'm still worried about the pandemic and masking and I know you can go down to the dining car and take your meals, but I called and I can just take my meals in my compartment if I want. So I think it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
And they probably have to have air circulation. They probably had to upgrade, if they didn't already have good air circulation, upgrade their air circulation. So, well, I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing you. I'm looking forward to seeing yarn.
Yes. Well, and our friends, because, but I was thinking about this, Kelly. I hope we can recognize everybody because we will all have masks on.
Yeah.
So we'll have to just, I don't know. Maybe we need signs saying who we are. I don't know. We'll find
Maybe
each
you
other,
should take, one of those like white pen. Well, my mask isn't black anymore. I'm wearing a blue, like a turquoise N95. Maybe I'll just put Kelly right across the front with a black Sharpie.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I should do that so because, we are all masked up, and so it's hard sometimes to tell.
It is. Yeah. I have, I'm back to teaching, as you know, and all of my students are wearing masks. And during the pandemic, the students got really good at using our online platform. We use something called Canvas. And of course, you can upload a profile picture. And so a lot of the students, when I first was using it, hardly anyone had a profile picture. But during the pandemic, a lot of the students, learned how to put on their profile pictures. But trying to match up a profile picture with the student and what they look like actually in the classroom with the mask on is tricky, Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure I would recognize my students without their masks for sure. So even people that I've known for a while or met before, I'm not sure that I would necessarily recognize them. So we'll have to do something.
So it's going to be an interesting challenge. We'll
have to recognize each other by our knitwear.
Yes.
I was hoping to be able to wear the Sunny Bono jacket.
Oh, yes.
But it might be too warm. I might have missed the window of opportunity for the Sunny Bono jacket this year. Yeah. I mean, today it feels like that because it's so warm today, but it'll get back to being cool.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of an issue just in terms of packing because knitwear is hard to pack. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll find something. Well, should we talk about projects?
Sure.
Okay.
You have a lot of them. Why don't you go first?
Well, I have a lot of them, and as I was making my notes, I was thinking, I have a lot of projects, but I'm kind of frustrated by my projects. I'm having I've had some kind of difficulty. Let me go to the notes here. So I still haven't done anything. Okay, let's back up. The Nanny Meier tea cozy for Brian, as I said the last episode, I have both sides are done. I just have to sew it together to make the pom-poms from the top. They go on top of the teapot, but I'm not super motivated. Do you know how you get to a project and then all you have to do is weave in the ends or something? And so I just have to make myself sit down and sew it together.
Yes.
And I was motivated to do it last week because I thought he was coming to dinner on Saturday, but then he wasn't able to come. So then I lost my motivation. So I just have to sit down and finish it so I can get it off these show notes.
I was going to say, what motivates me sometimes is I just want something out of the show notes. It's like, I look at I start the show notes for the next episode and I see the thing and I think, okay, no, I want this deleted. I'm going to go. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to get this done.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel about it. So I just need to take care of that. Still working on my socks. Nothing new to report on there. I'm getting ready to start doing the heel flap. And then I think I talked about this in the last episode that I finished the quick switch hat by AbbyeKnits that I was doing for Ben out of the Meeker Street Olives Outerwear DK. But did I talk about this?
No.
I can't remember.
I think you were still knitting on it. I don't think you had finished it.
Okay. So I was down at the beach and I finished it at the beach and then I laid it next to mine and it's about 2 inches smaller around than the one I made for myself. And you know how yarn, if this label says it's DK, but I was knitting with it. I guess what I should say, you should really trust your instincts and trust your gut. Because I'm knitting with it going, this doesn't feel the same as the DK I worked with before. Or maybe this is a true DK and the other yarn that I was using, I think it was a Madeline-Tosh, was not a true DK or vice versa. So I did it on the same size needles. I did not do a gauge swatch, Why would I?
Who swatches for a hat?
Yeah, really. You should swatch for a hat because it's about 2 inches smaller than mine, and I think it's a little tight. So I finished it, but I did not weave in the ends because I want Ben to try it on. And I called and we were talking about it, and he said, well, he's kind of excited that it's small because he's all the hats I've made him are way too big. And we were talking about this, the last episode, that hand spun hat I made for him was one of my first projects, and it's terrible. It's like a bucket hat. And so he said it flies off. It's amazing he still has it, because he'll be climbing and it'll fall off, and he'll go climb down and find it down at the base of the mountain and whatnot. So anyway, he's kind of excited about having a closer fitting cap.
Oh,
so
that's good.
I'm just going to wait and not finish it until he tries it on. But I was kind of, it's just like everything's not really working very well.
Yeah.
And then the Phrancko Designs sweater I'm making for Ben is coming along. I've knit down to the last episode. I think I had knit down to the point where I was going to start the ribbing. I did the ribbing, and then he does a bind off. I think it's the tubular bind off. Where you use a needle to sew it.
Yeah.
You don't knit it off.
It's basically like Kitchener stitching. Yeah.
Yes. Which looks really nice. And I think that's what I want to do. But he did say it's almost impossible to rip it out.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure, I want Ben to try the sweater on before I do. So I just have the bottom edge on waist yarn as I've moved on to the sleeve. But again, he needs to try. I need his body, to try this on before I finish it. So
last episode, you had mentioned that he was coming. You were leaving on Saturday, but he was going to be there. You thought that night, and maybe he could try it on. Did he try it on at that point?
Well, he came, but he didn't try. Because Ben shows up, drops his stuff up, and I'm going off, and so he left. And then I think I saw him briefly, and then he left. He went off. I left in the morning, and he was working. Yeah. So, and he has not come back now. I don't know. This is he hasn't come back.
It's been 2 weeks,
home,
since we last recorded. Almost.
Yeah. So it's okay. I'm hoping between now and the time I leave for California, he'll be home so I can finish this, not have all these stopping points where I am, so anyway, but I like the pattern. I like, it's this Phrancko.com and Frank Jernigan, excellent instructions, pretty clear. And also his video tutorials are excellent too.
Nice.
He's a good instructor. And then also, I said this before, and I'll just repeat it, that how much I enjoy knitting with handspun.
Yeah.
It's got a roundness and a poofiness to it or something. I don't know that I like. So anyway, so that's coming along. And then the last time we talked, I had started spinning a little bag of roving that I got that had 4 colors in it. Each was 1 ounce. And I finished those, so I kept the colors separate, just did a 2-ply of each individual color. And now I've cast on, I'm making up a pattern. I'm just doing a cowl where so I should back up and say, I wanted to do stripes, and Rochelle recreates on Ravelry contacted or put in the discussion thread that Pearl Soho had a great video about helix knitting, where you can put stripes in with 4 colors and not have to carry the yarn like up one side of your project. So I put the link that was a great video, and I put the link in the show notes if you want. So that's what I'm doing. And I did a swatch and decided to cast on 100 stitches. And then what you do with the helix knitting is you divide those stitches by 4. And so then you knit with your first color 25 stitches, pick up the second color, knit 25 stitches, pick up the third color, knit 25 stitches. The fourth one, you knit 25 stitches, and then go to your stitch marker, your beginning of row marker, knit another 25 in that same color. And then from that point on, then you just keep dropping what other color you're knitting when you come to a change, you drop that and your next working yarn is right there. I don't think I'm explaining that very clearly, but it's great because you don't get jogs. And there's a nice, she has the video also has a nice technique that you just have your yarn lined up in a row. And the one that the ball of yarn that you're working with is always on the left of the row. Oh. And as you finish knitting with that one, you just pick up it and you move it to the right, to the end of the line of yarn, and then knit with that next one. And you just keep moving them to the right, like hopping over the balls of yarn to go on the far right side of the balls. So then your yarn never gets tangled.
Theoretically. If you remember to do all of that moving.
Well, but it is funny if you go and you gather up your project, no matter how careful you are, I've discovered with this little project, and you put it in your project bag. I don't know what happens overnight, but the little elves get in there and they tangle all the balls. They go in there and tangle everything up. And so you take about 10 minutes when you pull your project out of the bag. You spend 10 minutes getting your balls all untwisted in a little line. But anyway.
The balls of yarn have a little party in the knitting bag.
Yeah, they have a party in the,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm knitting along on this, and I as I say, I'm sort of making up this pattern. I just decided I wanted a cowl, and I did, I would say 5 rows of ribbing in one color, and then I started the stripes.
Okay.
So I've knit 2 inches probably.
Fun.
So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's
fun. It looks really good, I think.
Yeah, I like it.
And it's knitting with handspun again.
It's knitting with handspun, and this is merino. It's very soft. I'm enjoying it. So I was kind of excited about the spinning, and so I think what happened is the reason I pulled out that bag with the 4 colors is I have a guest room that has a big wardrobe in there where all of I was talking about this in the last episode, where all of the fiber is. It's not the yarn, it's just the fiber. And so I had opened up and I pulled out that little bag and I was going to clean the room. Never cleaned the room. So I went back 2 days ago to clean the room and made the mistake of opening up that wardrobe again. I'm like, oh, look here's this other bag of roving. So I pulled it out. Still have not cleaned the room, just so you know, and the vacuum cleaner is still sitting up there in the room. But I pulled out this bag, and it's a 2-pound bag of roving, and it's Manx Lowton, which is from the Isle of Man, I was reading. And I have this, and it's kind of a caramel colored, I would say. So, Kelly, what I decided to do is... I should say about these sheep too, they're interesting. They have horns, and I'll see if I can remember to post a picture of what they look like, because they can have multiple sets of horns, but like one set of horns sticks straight up and the other set curls down around their face kind of. They're really unusual looking sheep. So I'll put some pictures in there, and maybe I'll put a link to the Wikipedia article about these sheep.
That would be
They're
good.
Mostly, they're a heritage breed. And I was reading here on Wikipedia that by the 1950s, there were only 43 surviving sheep. And so today there are still fewer than 1,500 registered breeding females, it says here. But so they're raised primarily for their meat, but people do spin their wool. And it does say in this Wikipedia article that it's... kind of priced for its softness. And that is not my experience. It's a bit of a, I don't think you'd want to have like a t-shirt out of this that's next to your skin. I don't think you'd want a hat out of it. I think it would be a sweater that you would wear over a flannel shirt or something, or maybe a blanket.
Like a medium to like on the more itchy side of medium wool. Maybe.
Yeah.
So,
but I was thinking about you. I was spinning it last night, and I took a picture because do you remember we were talking about woolen spun and how woolen spun has more air in it because of the spinning technique? You kind of hold, the way you described it is you hold the fiber in your left hand, if that's how you spin, and you hold it like you're holding a baby bird.
Yeah.
And then what you should be holding in your right hand, so you don't do any of that pinch and inching method, is in your right hand, you should be holding a glass of wine so that you can't use your right hand.
Yeah.
So I did use my right hand a little bit, but I really tried, because I don't typically spin that way with, I hold it a little bit tighter. So I was really practicing the other night to do, because am I correct that is woolen spun where you hold it and so you let there's a lot of sort of air in the fiber? Okay. So I spun a bobbin of it over 2 nights.
Nice.
So I don't know what I'll do with it. You know me, I'm always like spinning for a specific project. I decided I'm going to channel you, not only like holding the fiber like I'm holding a baby bird in my left hand, but I'm also going to spin it just to spin the yarn and not think about what I'm going to make.
Oh, exciting.
When I do a swatch, it'll tell me what it's supposed to be, right?
Right. Or you might even know before you get all the way done with the spinning, but something will come to you.
I will say, and I don't know if this is kind of nuts when I say this, but when I've been spinning spinning the single, it feels a bit rough. But then you know how you'll just take the yarn and you'll double it back or triple it, like 3 pieces together and just like ply it together kind of, and it feels softer to me then.
Yeah.
And I think that's nuts. I don't think that can't be right. No, or is it?
I think it is. It's, well, it depends on, does soft mean smooth? Does soft mean not prickly? Does soft mean puffy? Right? It depends on what you mean by soft. So when you double it back on each other, double it back on itself and look at that ply, it sort of gets puffier, right? And so that puffiness is giving you some of that soft feeling. So there's lots of ways that something can feel soft. And
that's true.
And when it's and when it's tightly spun in the singles, it feels more coarse because everything's kind of tight and close together. And then when it's allowed to kind of bloom, it does start to feel softer. But that doesn't mean it won't necessarily feel prickly, right? Because that's more a matter of the micron count of the wool. And one of the wool judges, I can't remember which one it was, but one of the wool judges was saying that the sort of prickle factor or the itchiness can also come from, what do I want to say, diversity of the micron count. So if the micron count is all one thing, it's going to feel, even if it's if you have a higher micron count, but it's all consistent, it's going to feel better to your skin than something that might be a little bit lower of a micron count, but inconsistent.
Okay.
So that's part of it too. So once you get done, there's no way to know for sure exactly how close to the skin you'll be able to wear it. But you're probably not wrong that once you ply it, it'll feel a little bit different.
Because as I've been spinning it, I also thought too, well, maybe it's not a sweater because there's 2 pounds. I don't know how much yardage that will be. But maybe I knit a blanket, but I combine it with something that's softer. That would sort of balance out the, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking at this point.
Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about the transformation that happens at every stage.
Right.
And so that is one of the things that's fun is you don't know exactly, you have an idea, but you don't know exactly.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder, and this may not have anything to do with it either because you know so much more about this than I do, but it also, the fiber has a bit of an odor to it. Not a bad odor, like it's dirty or anything, but I wonder if once it's washed again, because it has a bit of a lanolin smell to it. Pretty strong lanolin smell.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering is when it is washed again as yarn, because I always wash the yarn after I ply it, and, give it a good thwack on the picnic table, that technique to poof it up and everything. And then it'll be washed again, probably as a garment or a blanket or something, if that's going to change the feel of it as well.
Well, I can give you an example. I had to spin another skein for the blanket that I'm making. And you would think that in all the years of washing fleeces that I would know not to be skimpy on the water or not to be skimpy on the soap. And I would know how to get a fleece clean, right? But this particular fleece, I'm pretty sure I was in a hurry to get it washed. And so it's still a little sticky. And spinning it during the cold, during the cold time of day was really sticky. And so I put it in the sun and let it warm up a little bit. And then it was nice. You could even feel the lanolin kind of slipping, as you spin it. But the skein of yarn was gross. I mean, it just had kind of a dead feeling to it. It wasn't the same kind of, that life you feel in a handspun. And so I just boiled some water on the stove, poured it into the wash pot that I use, put some Dawn in there, put the some dish soap in there, put the skein in there, let it soak. I think maybe 10 minutes. I didn't want the water to cool off too much. And then I washed it again just in hot water from the tap, again, soap and hot water from the tap. And then I rinsed it with just the hottest water I could get out of the tap. And now it's all puffy and fluffy and, it has that feel to it because it's clean. It's not all stuck together with lanolin that didn't get washed out. So, I mean, spinning wool that has a little bit of lanolin still left in it is really nice when the weather's warm and the lanolin's all soft and slippery and, makes your hands feel like you've just, lotioned them up really nicely. But spinning it during cold weather when the lanolin's all sticky is not fun.
Yeah.
So that might be part of what you're noticing too. Because didn't you say it's a high lanolin breed?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't feel sticky, but it does have a really strong lanolin odor. Because most machine-made yarn has no lanolin odor at all, right?
Right.
And this does have a really strong odor, so I think there's still a lot of lanolin in there.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, this is why you spin, because it does keep changing. We don't really. I can't tell you how right now I would say no, I'm not making a sweater out of it. But who knows when it's done? It might be fantastic.
Once you ply it and wash it and all that stuff, yeah. You could even over dye some of it if you wanted, since you have 2 pounds of it.
Yeah.
You have a lot of options.
I was thinking also about you while I was spinning this, is that 2 pounds is really too much for a sweater. I'll probably have a lot left over, which leads me to your project. So that's all I have to say about my projects, other than I'm kind of having some hits and misses on my projects. So, but anyway, that's a nice segue.
Yeah, that is. And you have some projects that are dependent on other people too. Right. And that's throwing some monkey wrenches into your plans along the way. Well, so I'll take that segue and talk about my leftovers project. The garter squish blanket. I'm knitting on it right now. And this is the first time I've knit on it in over a week.
Oh, okay.
Because I did run out of yarn shortly after we recorded the last episode. I think I maybe got like 6 more inches, and then I had to stop because I was out of the white. So I spun some more of the Oxford. That's the one I was just talking about that was not as clean as it should have been. And And it's a fleece that's been hanging around a while too. I mean, I washed it not long after I got it, I think. Maybe not. I can't remember. But I think I bought this Oxford fleece in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's a fleece that's been hanging around a while. I think what I did this summer with the Oxford, I can't remember exactly, but I think what I did this summer is I spun 3 bobbins full and then plied them all off and got like 3 skeins. And I don't think I got any further than that. Well, and I washed and carded the fleece, or not washed, but carded the fleece. So I had a bunch of the bats left over. In fact, they were still packed in the little bag I put them in when I went to Seabrook with you in September. I had thrown a couple of bobbins in there. I had thrown a couple of things for my spinning wheel, you know, things that I wanted to have for spinning in there, and packed it in my car. And when I got home and I unpacked, I just took it out of the car and dumped it in the garage. So dug that out, and I started spinning. I've now got 3 bobbins totally full of singles, and I started plying them off. So I have this 1 skein that I just wound up this morning so that I could knit while we talked. And I'm using, along with it, I'm using a green, kind of a foresty green color that I used in the Funky Grandpa sweater. And I also used in my, I forget the name of it. It's a poncho that has like a turtleneck.
Oh, yes.
It's lime green. I made it out of sincere sheep.
You wore it when you went to the winery with your friends.
I did.
What's the name of that?
I can't remember.
Everybody was making it.
Yeah,
anyway.
Tracy made one.
Keep talking and I'll look.
Okay. So anyway, I wore it to work today, and it's sitting right here. And I used those leftovers in it as well for the color work part of it. So I'm using up the very last, and I think I maybe have about maybe 4 yards of this left before I switch to another color, which is always the fun part. So I have work to do after we get done today, but I could very easily see myself moving out to the backyard and ditching Thursday afternoon's work so that I could go through another color in this blanket, because it's truly, truly addicting. So did you find it, Marsha?
I'm scrolling. I'm getting through all of the Star Wars figures, and
all of my.
I'm still scrolling back and back.
Okay, well, I will let you keep doing that, and I'll go on to say that the only other thing that I'm working on right now is my Weird Sisters Wool Emporium socks, and I'm about halfway down the foot of the second sock, so those should be done. I'm sorry.
Soon. I found it.
Oh, good.
I'm interrupting you. Indigo Frost.
Indigo Frost, yes.
And Isabel Kramer.
Okay.
Is the designer.
Yes,
okay.
One of our faves.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, in fact, I got a compliment on it. One of my students commented this today that he liked my shawl. So, yeah.
Nice.
So I dug that out. And I felt kind of weird wearing a wool poncho when the weather says it says right now it's 82 in Salinas. It wasn't that warm when I left for work. It's still not that warm in the shade here. If I were sitting in the shade, I might still want long sleeves on or something, but anyway. So those are my 2 projects. I need to get some more plying done so I get some more of the yarn for the garter squish. So I guess there's a spinning project in there too, but that's what I'm working on. Socks and the garter squish blanket. Yeah.
Okay. And that's it for projects?
That's it for projects. Although I will tell you about a different kind of project that I worked on this week. So,
okay.
You all will maybe remember that Caroline left us a feedback about her. She was talking about her local yarn store and how it would be really interesting, since we can't travel around to different yarn stores really very easily right now, that we could talk about them. And I thought that would be really fun. And I thought I'd really like to actually hear people's voices, like actually put them on the show talking about their favorite yarn store, local yarn store. So I got an account. It's if you go to this website called speakpipe.com/2Us, and we have the link to it in the show notes. But it's spelled the way you would think. speakpipe.com/2Us. You can actually leave us a message. It has a 90-second limit, which is actually a lot longer than you think when you start talking and you feel like you have a time limit. But 90 seconds is a lot of time. So you can use the speakpipe.com/2Us website to leave us a message, or you can use the voice memo app on your phone and just email us the audio file, 2us@2usfiberadventures.com, and send us some information about your local yarn shop. We'll put it in our future episodes. Put your voice on the show. I'm excited about that. I think that'd be fun. I had heard about this SpeakPipe before, but I hadn't done anything about it. So I made myself a little project the other day to get that set up.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really excited to hear what people have, to hear about shops all over the world, So, yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Oh, I do have one other. It's not really my project, but I want to talk about it. I think we have time. Yeah.
We'll make time.
So Aunt Betty's making a hat. And she bought a kit to make the hat. And she's knitting, and the pattern calls for like 5 inches of ribbing. And the whole time she's knitting the ribbing, she's complaining because she doesn't like knitting ribbing, and she doesn't think it needs to be 5 inches. But she does it, and then the hat is cabled, and so she starts the cables, and then all of a sudden she's worried that she's going to run out of yarn. So she takes a look again at her kit, and the pattern in the kit calls for something like 220 yards, and the skein of yarn that they put in the kit has like 200 yards. Oh. So she really is going to run out of yarn. Yeah. Isn't that irritating?
Yeah.
So
why would they do that?
I don't know. Yeah.
So we need to check these things. If you buy a kit, you need to check it, right?
Yeah. I mean, you would think that would be something that would be automatic, that the amount of yarn in the skein that they put in the kit would be the right amount of yarn for the pattern.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is true. If a designer makes a pattern, let's say for Cascade 220 that has 220 yards in it, and doesn't use it all, the pattern still calls for 220 yards, right? Because that's the skein. It has that yarn as the required yarn. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Are you talking about in kits, or are you just talking about in general?
In general, with a pattern.
See, I don't agree with that. I mean, I would think that, doesn't it tell you how many yards if the pattern calls for Cascade 220 and you want to make a size medium, it's going to tell you how many skeins to buy. Right. But doesn't it also tell you how many yards you need, so that you can, if you wanted to substitute a different yardage. So if you say, you had to have, this is not probably true, but say you needed 10 balls of Cascade 220, that would be over 2,000 yards, right? Yeah. But you're saying that they would have you buy that, but you wouldn't necessarily need that to knit the sweater, right?
Well, and I guess it depends on the pattern, because like the blanket, phase flower blanket that I made, it told you needed these skeins, this many of these skeins. And some of those skeins, you did not use the whole. You wouldn't use the whole thing if you followed the pattern's design where,
right.
The center was each flower was one color, and all the tiles were the same color. But I don't think it told you exactly how much you used, so you would know how much you would have left over.
But like if you bought yarn in a kit, and it would say, for this hat you need 1 skein of Cascade 220. Mm-hmm. It might be that you don't need all 220 yards of that to make the hat,
right? But
that's what they're going to tell you need because that's what's in the kit.
That's what's in the skein, like that the designer designed the pattern for. Yeah. Anyway, I
understand what you're saying, but I don't like.
It doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right. I mean, and then if you wanted to use a different, like if you really like that pattern and you wanted to make another hat, you need to know how many yards you need. Mm-hmm. I mean, well, we're beating a dead horse, I think, here. But if you have a hat in a kit and it says you need one skein of Cascade 220, which is included in the kit, and you really like the pattern, you would just go buy something that had 220 yards, right? And then just figure you'd probably have some left over. But,
right. And I do think it depends on the pattern because, like, for example, I just grabbed a pattern off of Ravelry. It's a Preemie hat. The Preemie Trellis Hat by Barb Weatherford. And it's using a certain kind of yarn called Bamboo Pop. And that skein is 267 meters. But it does say quite clearly in the pattern that it takes 45 to 50 yards to make the hat. It doesn't say just buy 1 skein.
Right.
So I could be wrong. I could be wrong about what I was thinking.
Well, and the other thing, I'm going to say the other caveat to all of this, you have to keep it, there's so many factors to keep in mind. Everybody knits differently. Yeah. So somebody could use more yardage, making the exact same hat, the exact same number of stitches, just because of the way they knit, and
So
those yardages are estimates,
right? And but that I think makes it even more important that if you're going to sell a kit, it shouldn't be that someone in your shop knit the hat and had it said 220 yards in the pattern. Someone in your shop knit the hat and had 20 yards left over. And so, good, now we can sell a 200-yard skein to make that hat because that one person is going to be different. You should at least provide a skein of yarn that has that much that the pattern calls for or more, I guess is my point.
Kelly, you're right.
Thank you.
Do you feel affirmed?
I feel affirmed, yes. And but what happened was Aunt Betty and I talked about this a few times. What was she going to do? And I said, I will rip it back for you. You like this yarn. Shoot. She lives in the Northwest. Felicia Lowe. What is the name of her yarn? Oh, Sweet Georgia.
Oh, here,
Sweet Georgia.
Oh, right. Yes.
Very nice yarn. It's really excellent yarn. So I said, you like knitting with the yarn. So, if you want, when you get done, if you run out, keep going, try it, see if it'll work. And then when you run out, I'll rip it back for you and you can start it with less ribbing. You like the yarn, you like to knit with it, so you just get to knit with it twice. That was not a very popular.
Yes.
As you know, if that was you and if you had that situation. It's true, you like to knit, you like the yarn, why wouldn't you want to knit it twice, but you don't, right?
No, you don't want to knit it twice. And also like if you rip it back, you would just rip back till she had the right amount of she won't have to do the ribbing all over again.
Right.
It'll still be there, right? Exactly. You'll just rip back to whatever amount she wants. So.
And I always do the ripping back for her because she doesn't like ripping back, and she has a difficult time with her hands getting the stitches all back on the needles. So I always do that for her, and I don't have, that's fine. I don't mind doing it. But so that was kind of an unpleasant option. And then we had we had about 5 consultations about this hat. Then we had another consultation because I said, well, let me try it on, And so I tried it on. I said, I don't think you have that much more to go. The pattern was going to call for her to do like 2 more repeats of the cable. Like, I don't think you need 2 more repeats of the cable because, I mean, that's going to be a really a really tall hat. And she said, well, my gauge is right. You know, she was checking her gauge and her gauge was right. And I said, well, maybe it's just meant to be a more slouchy hat, but I don't think you need all that height, you know? So she decreased the amount of repeats that she needed to do. And then she started the decreases and she still ran out. So we had another consultation. I don't remember how much yarn she had, but I said, you know what? It's tall enough. You could just, you know, I took the needles and scrunched it all together. Like if you ran the yarn through it and pulled it closed. I said, if you pulled it closed right now, it would be deep enough, you know, to fit. And so we decided she was going to try to go around, knit two together, just to make fewer stitches to cinch together. Well, she couldn't get all the way around for knit two together. So she went all around doing knit three together. And
knit three together. Yeah. That's hard.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, she was not happy at the end of that. That was difficult. But she did it and she brings it to me and it has about 3.5 inches of yarn left. Talk about yarn chicken.
Oh my goodness.
So I took a needle and I took that 3.5 inches of yarn and I cinched that thing up and I knotted it because I didn't want it to uncinch. You know, there's a lot of pressure. I made a couple of knots as I was weaving that, you know, weaving them closed and then weaving that end in. But it actually turned out cute. But still, you shouldn't have to do that with a kit.
No.
You know, so, and like I said, you know, if it was just that her gauge was different, that'd be one thing. But the pattern actually called for more yarn than was in the skein that they supplied.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just wrong.
Now, I've not knit anything from a kit, but I know your mom does a lot of things, patterns with kit that come in a kit. Has she had this problem?
Not that I've ever heard of. No. Yeah, she usually buys a kit or two at Stitches every year. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. Do any of you have any of you had this problem with kits where you really have to watch? Because I wouldn't have even thought of that. You know, of double checking. I would just assume that would have been something that would be taken care of. But yeah, and she even was willing to buy another skein because she liked the yarn so much. But because it's, you know, the dye lot varies. It's hand dyed, so you know you kind of should alternate skeins, and probably if she bought a new skein, the top part of the hat would just have been a different color. Slightly different color than the bottom part of the hat. Anyway, but I told her, do not buy another skein of yarn. Yeah. Especially since she'd be buying it from the same place that sold her this kit.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, but I am curious if anybody else has had that problem, if that's something that you need to watch out for when you use a kit. Because I haven't ever used a kit either.
No, I haven't either. I mean, years ago, I would buy kits for like needlepoint or something. And I never had the issue where I ran out of yarn. But I've never bought a knitting kit.
Yeah, me either.
Well, let's talk. We have some other announcements we need to make about alongs that we have going on. So let's just mention we talk about every episode, but the Winter Weave Along goes is underway, and that ends the end of March.
We have a really active discussion thread on the Winter Weave Along. If you're a weaver and you want to join in talking to other weavers, we have a nice discussion thread going on for the Winter Weave Along. I can't remember if I have a finished object thread in there. Maybe I ought to start. Maybe I ought to go check that and see. I'll make sure we do. Okay.
And then we should mention too, we have the 2Use hand-dyed cotton yarn and dishcloth pattern giveaway. And that started January 13th and that ends February 28th. So that's coming up pretty quick. And we have a new along.
Yes.
Starting. by popular, it's been demanded.
Yes.
Our listeners have demanded that we start this. And so, Kelly, do you want to talk about it? Or
Sure. Let me just mention that the Dishcloth Giveaway, there's a Ravelry thread that you should go into and just either tell us that you've never knit a dishcloth before if you're new to making dishcloths, or if you do make dishcloths, let us know what your favorite dishcloth pattern is. And we're going to I want to compile that list of favorite patterns, maybe put it into a bundle or something. But anyway, that's how you enter that giveaway if you want to. But yeah, this stash, we're going to have a stash busting blanket along. And actually, Marsha and I were laughing. So many of us have already started the blankets that we're actually joining this knit along in progress.
Yes.
We just didn't know it was in progress.
So I think that my garter squish that I did, where I dyed everything, and then your garter squish blanket has sort of inspired people. So a lot of people are doing garter squish. We should say this: you do not have to do the Stephen West garter squish pattern.
No.
You can if you want, but you do not have to do it because there's a lot of different stash busting blankets out there.
So we got some feedback in email from Karen. And she said that she was listening to our episode about stash review and leftovers, and she wanted to suggest that her favorite blanket is called the Knit One Below Afghan, and it's from a book by Elise Duvecote. And the book is called Knit One Below, One Stitch Many Fabrics. It was published back in 2008. And it just this knit one below technique and what you can do with it. So there's a blanket pattern in that book. Marsha and I looked and we did not see the pattern available by itself, only available in the book. Although your mileage might vary. You might be able to find just the pattern depending on where you look. But what Karen says is, as long as you have colors you like together, you can combine different weights. She says, I pick randomly from a bag, knit across the row, leaving fringe strands at each end, then pick another yarn and do the next row. It's surprisingly fun, very forgiving, and looks great, even with a wide variation of colors, fibers, and weights. Honestly, there's really no pattern, and the hardest part is deciding how many stitches to cast on. Okay. So I thought that was very, very interesting.
It reminds me a little bit of, do you remember I made a scarf a number of years ago called Mini Mania?
Oh, yeah.
Where you used just sock scraps. And it was the same thing where you cast on, I don't remember now how many stitches. It was a free pattern. It's in my project page, but you cast on however many stitches you wanted for the length of your scarf. And then it was a linen stitch. And then those ends... So you didn't have any ends to weave in because you would just knit across, and then those ends that were hanging off the edge of it, you just knotted those and turned them into the fringe of the scarf. And it was, so, I mean, and you could do a blanket like that too.
Yeah.
You know? So that's where it reminds me of that. Our listener is Tea and Knitting 2, Colleen, and she recommended the Sediment Scraps blanket, and it's published in, the designer is Katie Rose Pryal, Pryal, and published in the Knitting Professors. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it is like the garter squish, except it's on the diagonal. And that would be a really great project for busting.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to make a bundle for this too.
Yeah.
A stash busting blanket bundle. I don't think you could say that 3 times fast. I'm not even going to try.
So, so this, there'll be prizes. So, it's underway now. We decided it's going to end May 31st. And because that's right about the time that our summer spin-in starts. So, that should give people time, I think, to... Because just from the discussion in our group, a lot of people are starting something. Actually, they've done something. They're about to start something. They've posted pictures of all of their yarn on the table,
And
so...
can you guess where all my yarn is?
On the floor of the bedrooms or the guest room still.
Still. I really do have to clean up in here, but...
Well, I don't mind using the room with the yarn there. That's fine.
I'm going to have to get it clean before you come, actually. Because it's not only got my yarn in it, but I decided at the same time that I was getting all my stash out that I was going to get all my equipment out. And I was going to organize it and find, throw away stuff I didn't need and all that. So I've got bags full of, hooks and needles and tape measures and stitch markers. And I just went around collecting all the stuff from everywhere. Plus I had those drawers in the sunroom that had, that I store stuff in. And they had become sort of jumbled over the last couple of years. With things not in the right place. So that's all out in the spare room too. So I have some cleanup to do before you get here, Marsha.
Do you want me to get a motel? Would that be easier?
No, luckily I have a 4-day weekend in February.
Or is it good that because there's now like a deadline? I'm coming. Yeah. I'm arriving.
That's right.
Well, we've often joked over the years that like projects get done when I'm arriving.
That's right. And I have a bad habit of starting things that require a big mess and then not cleaning up the big mess. So I do need to get my act together.
Yeah. I don't mind sharing the room with the stash. I'm fine with that. So I think that's everything that we wanted to talk about, isn't it?
I do too.
So
don't forget to send us your voice message about your favorite local yarn store.
As you're talking, I'm just thinking about our stash busting blanket along, and we will have prizes. We don't know what they are right now, but it did strike me as being kind of funny if we gave yarn.
Well, if you use it all up doing the blanket, you're going to need more.
Oh my gosh. Funny. I crack myself up. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So anything else?
Nope. I think that's it.
All right. I will say goodbye and we'll talk in 2 weeks probably. We'll probably record before I leave for California, I imagine.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.